Good evening, everyone. It's been a while, and I apologize for my absence. As pretentious as this set may seem, I think it might actually serve a purpose. I'm thinking about discussing topics that are introduced in recent books. For instance, I'm currently reading Douglas Murray's The Madness of Crowds, and that's definitely a book that I want to have a conversation about in the future. But for now, let's focus on another book, this one by Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay, titled How to Have Impossible Conversations, A Very Practical Guide. It doesn't take a genius to see that, at times, it seems almost impossible to have certain conversations. Some would argue that the current political zeitgeist is making it even more difficult to have conversations about topics such as abortion or racial tensions in the United States. I don't think it's necessarily getting more difficult, but rather that social media is amplifying voices that have been desperately looking for an audience. But nevertheless, there is an undeniable problem within ourselves that make it almost impossible to make progress on certain discussions. A glance over at Twitter will convince you of this rather quickly, and I'm afraid a glance over at the attitudes towards free speech and civil discourse on college campuses won't help you out either. Enter Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay, a philosopher and former mathematician respectively. In their book, they go over the most up-to-date research on how to have effective conversations. This ranges from techniques such as the type of language that you should use, to techniques that have you focus more on the epistemology of beliefs. For instance, instead of trying to argue against a conclusion, let's say you're having a conversation with someone that thinks abortion is murder, ask them questions that'll help you better understand why they believe what they believe. Not only will this give you a clearer picture of their thoughts, but surprisingly enough, it may also lower the confidence levels of the person in question. Oftentimes, people aren't as knowledgeable as they thought they were on specific topics. What tends to occur is that people are already predisposed to believe certain things, either because friends and family believe it, or because someone who wears a particularly colored bow tie believe it. And most of the time, it's not even being done consciously. People like to think that they're reaching their conclusions based on evidence, their own rationale, logic, when in reality it's just cognitive bias at work. And so because of this, people have practiced statements and responses to expected questions that are bound to come their way. Have you ever been having a conversation with a friend or family member whom is politically engaged, and halfway through their argument you realize, didn't Ben Shapiro say the same exact thing in one of his videos? And that's not disparaging Ben Shapiro, I'm just mentioning him because he's one of the most popular political people out there. But I know for a fact that I've come across situations like that, and I'd be lying if I wasn't guilty of this sort of thing myself. And anyone from the sidelines will think to themselves, damn, this guy really knows what he's talking about. By focusing on epistemology and asking questions about the genesis of their beliefs, the person's confidence levels in their beliefs can go down when they realize that they're not as knowledgeable about the topic as they thought they were. With skillfully worded questions, they might even be willing to change their mind. They mention a study in the book in which they ask a group of people to rank their knowledge based on how well they think they understand a toilet works. Initially, people would rank their understanding pretty high, around 8s, 9s, maybe even a 10. And then they were asked to verbally explain how a toilet actually worked, giving as much detail as possible. After they tried to explain how a toilet worked, they were asked again, from 1 to a 10, how confident are you in how a toilet system works? And to no one's surprise, they ranked themselves much lower after they realized that they have no fucking idea how a toilet system worked. However, you have to make sure that you don't come off as too combative or accusatory in some way, because then it could backfire and the person will just try even harder to justify their beliefs. And the book is filled with valuable information such as this, and the authors even give examples from their past exchanges as cautionary tales in which they fuck up what could have been perfectly good conversations. I can't recommend this book enough, especially if you're the type of person that engages in controversial topics revolving around politics or religion, whether it be with friends or family members or just some random guy at a bar. This is definitely a book that I recommend if you're the type of person who is prone to those types of conversations. I mean, I definitely could have used this book in high school. I was your stereotypical angry asshole that got heated whenever conversations about politics or religion came up. Some real embarrassing shit. As far as I'm concerned, the techniques and research that were presented in the book were only meant for face-to-face conversations. When it comes to discussing these topics over social media, the jury is still out whether or not these tools are actually effective. The same goes for recorded debates that public intellectuals may have. The fact that many people are watching you have this conversation and probably already have a well-documented belief that is what gave you your attention in the first place might cause some serious problems. And as far as the audience goes, the style of debate that the likes of Hitchens or Dawkins are known for are still effective at convincing large audiences of their beliefs, since people aren't as personally engaged in the conversation, and the strengths of the arguments that are being made are still being analyzed. And of course, it should go without saying that you should apply this to your own beliefs as well. And anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say for now about the book in question. If you want to read a more in-depth review that I have of the book, you can go ahead and add me as a friend on Goodreads. You can check out all the other books that I've read in the past or that I'm currently reading on there as well. It's a great website for that. Now, because one of the appraisals for the book on the back is by Richard Dawkins, author of Science and the Soul and Outgrowing God. He's an evolutionary biologist and, of course, renowned atheist. We'll be discussing his book next week. I have his book right here. I haven't finished it, but it's relatively short. I should be done by next week. And I would recommend all of you to go check out his appearance on the Cosmic Skeptic podcast. Cosmic Skeptic is one of the people that I admire very much on YouTube, and in fact, it was actually his style of filming and editing that, as you can see, I'm very heavily inspired by. And anyways, feel free to follow me on social media if you want to. The links are right here. I'm pretty much on everything except for Snapchat. And as always, thanks for watching.